Welcome, everybody. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. Back from a little vacation, but I am glad to be back. And it's always a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm so glad that you're here, and we're having a great show tonight. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, and away we go.
American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. I am so glad to be here with all of you tonight. The weekend is over. It is late Monday evening, just a little after 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in my lovely Brooklyn apartment with my world-famous bookshelf behind me. And the way this works, for those of you who may not be familiar, is I give my opening remarks followed by the roll call. And once my opening remarks are done, I then give the roll call. We find out who's on the other side of the camera. And then after that, I answer Super Chat or Rumble Rant or Rockfin Tip questions for the rest of the night. So if there's something you would like me to talk about in the second half of our program, and you're watching right now on Rumble or Rockfin or YouTube, all you have to do is send me a YouTube Super Chat, a Rumble Rant, or a Rockfin Tip, and I will be writing the questions down as I go through my opening remarks. And then when the second half of our program begins, I will start answering the Super Chat, Rumble Rant, or Rockfin Tip questions in the order that they arrived. That's how I will do it. So I am looking forward to answering your questions. That's one of the main reasons that I am here, is not just to talk about what's on my mind, but to talk about what is on your mind, to answer your questions, to do my best to give you commentary or analysis on whatever you want to know about. So I am looking forward to the second half of our program. Keep the super chats rolling in. I'll be typing them down. I can cut and paste on some of the apps, and on some of the apps I cannot, but I'll be putting them on the list. I can show some of them on the screen. Some of them I cannot, but we're glad to be on all three different apps. We are on YouTube right now. We are on Rumble right now. We are on Rockfin right now. And we will be answering your questions in the second half of the show. So just wanted to make that clear to everybody. Make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure that you're subscribed, because they are messing with me in the subscriptions. And that's why we're gradually pivoting away from YouTube, because YouTube has been messing with me in the subscriber count. And so on that note, I guess I will just jump into my opening remarks. Folks, sometimes you have to detoxify. And I did a lot of that this weekend. Tried not to look at Twitter, or the app formerly known as Twitter, now known as X, too much. Tried not to look at the TV and the news too much. Tried to detoxify. But now I'm back. And the August summer heat is still there. And look, you have to detoxify sometimes, because things are getting toxic out there. Things have been toxic out there. So now that I'm back, I'm going to jump into what it is that we are facing. Two clips come to mind. First one.
President, any comments on the rising death toll in Maui?
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
Nothing there.
Yeah. Yes. In Hawaii, the 50th U.S. state, the warning sirens that are supposed to alert people about wildfires didn't go off. All kinds of people were not aware that the wildfire was coming. There has been a tragic death toll. The death toll is rising. Joe Biden says, no comment. No comment. Turns out, we now find out that the electrical infrastructure of Hawaii is in shambles, and it was sparks from the decaying power grid that lit the fire. Furthermore, we find out that back in 2021, over 2 years ago, the federal government did an investigation, an assessment of the area, and said that the fire response was not adequate, that proper safety procedures were not in place. And Joe Biden says, no comment, no comment. But yet we send billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. How much longer are we going to let them get away with this? How much longer are they going to continue robbing the American people, funneling money into that corrupt regime over there, that gangster oligarch state that's been set up by NATO to threaten Russia, rob us blind while our country is falling apart? How much longer are they going to continue this money laundering scam? How much longer are we going to tolerate this? Another year? Another 2 years? How much longer are they going to keep this going? They've already made clear, based on their assessment, based on what's been leaked by Seymour Hersh, there's no way in hell Crimea is ever going back to Ukraine. There is no way in hell that Donetsk and Lugansk are ever going back to Ukraine. They had their chance. Ukraine had their chance in 2014 to make peace with these people, to implement the Minsk agreement. Didn't do it. Russia's moved in. They had referendums. Those territories are now republics in the Russian Federation. That's just how it is. And the CIA knows that. But they want to keep prolonging this war. They want to keep piling weapons in. They don't even have any strategy. They're just piling weapons into Ukraine. They're just, attacking the Kerch Bridge. They actually injured a child recently with their drone strike onto Moscow's financial district. I don't know if you saw that, but Ukraine at this point, they're this territory that is contested, they're not getting it back. There is no end to this war the way Ukraine and its allies think it could end. The only way this killing is going to stop is if there's some kind of negotiation, and that isn't happening because the Biden administration and the White House and the British government don't want to let it happen. And so people are dying around the clock. Our money's being wasted. Meanwhile, we don't have adequate fire response in Hawaii. Our power grids are falling apart. Texas power grid collapsed a couple years back during the winter. Now the faulty power grid in Maui, sparked a fire that killed all kinds of people. But that's not the only clip I wanted to show you, is Joe Biden saying, I don't care about you. I don't care about you. I'm Joe Biden. That should be his ad, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Joe Biden. And, I really just don't give a fuck about you. I don't know who you are watching this video. I don't give a fuck about you. I really don't care about you. That should be what his campaign is focused on. But that brings me to yet another video. And shout out to Chase, who sent it to me. Thank you, Chase. But I was going around social media. So I don't know if you guys know who this woman is, but this is Jane Goodall. And Jane Goodall is a scientist who has made her career studying monkeys. Nothing wrong with that, right? We need people to study monkeys. We need people to study elephants. We need people to study chimpanzees. We need people to study, dinosaurs and giraffes and all kinds of animals. Nothing wrong with studying animals. But Jane Goodall studies monkeys because she believes that she can learn about human behavior and human psychology by studying monkeys. And she's made a career out of this. She believes that human beings are no better than apes, than primates. And the British Empire and all the big financial institutions, they love her for saying this. They just absolutely love that she thinks this. So she was speaking at none other than the World Economic Forum. Ring any bells? World Economic Forum. If anyone's read anything related to conspiracies, COVID, you name it. She was speaking to the World Economic Forum, and she decided to drop some wisdom on us all. This is what Jane Goodall, the monkey scientist, this is what she thinks about the state of the world. And again, if she was just a random monkey scientist, I wouldn't care. It's the fact that she's speaking to the World Economic Forum. This is what she said.
Less meat. We need to stop land being used for cattle and growing grain for the billions of animals that we keep in our intensive farms. And then finally, we cannot hide away from human population growth because, it underlies so many of the other problems. All these things we talk about wouldn't be a problem if there was the size of population that there was 500 years ago.
The size of the population that there was 500 years ago.
So many of the other problems. All these things we talk about wouldn't be a problem if there was the size of population that there was 500 years ago.
She wants the human population to be the size that it was 500 years ago. Now, let's do the math. I'm typing into Google right now. What was the human population 500 years ago? What was the human population 500 years ago? What was it? What was the human population 500 years ago? Well, I'm seeing here that by 1650, the world's population had risen to about 500 million. She's talking about reducing the human population. Let's do the math. So it was in 1650. That's not even 500 years ago, but in 1650, the human population reached 500 million. So let's do the math here. Let's just do it, right? I was never very good at mathematics because I grew up in the United States of America where they don't teach us math the way they teach it in other countries. So I was never a math genius, but the calculator has been invented. So let's just do the math here, right? So if in 1650, the population of the world was 500 million, right? And the population of the world now is what, 8 billion? What is the human population now? What is the human population right now? 8.1 billion. So let's do the math. 8.1 billion minus 500 million. The number that I get when I subtract the human population from 500 years ago from the current human population, the current population is 8.1 billion. The population 500 years ago was 500 million. The difference is 7,600,000,000. 7.6 billion people. So at the World Economic Forum, they are openly talking about reducing the human population by 750 million, by 7.6 billion people. 7.6 billion people. 95% of the people on Earth have to die, according to Jane Goodall and the British Empire and the World Economic Forum and the monkey scientist that they rolled out to speak to us. 95% of the human race. And, I talk about Malthusianism and Malthusian economics. Karl Marx talked about Malthusianism and Malthusian economics. He wrote a book about it called Theories of Surplus Value, which he debunked Malthusianism, the notion that economic problems are caused by overpopulation, that population growth causes the breakdown of the economy. Karl Marx thought it was important enough to write a book. Got it right up here. Theories of Surplus Value. He wrote a whole book debunking these economic concepts. Friedrich Engels called Malthus and his economic theories one of the cruelest economic theories ever developed. Marx showed that Malthusian economics is bullshit because it relies on the notion of non-productive consumers. It doesn't take into account that human beings don't just consume wealth, they also create it, which, doesn't take that into account. If you have more people, they can grow more food. Doesn't take that into account. But I want you to understand what's going on. And that's what makes these live streams special. Is we understand why all of this is happening. And we give an answer and we give a way out. So I am just going to quickly go on what we know, which is that we live in an economic system called capitalism. And capitalism is when the centers of economic power, the means of production, operate according to profit. We don't have houses because people need a place to live. We have houses so that landlords and banks can make money selling them, renting them. We don't have food so people can eat it. We have food so big box stores and corporations can make money selling it. And we don't live in ordinary capitalism. We live in a stage of capitalism called imperialism. Vladimir Lenin wrote about imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, where the wealth is centralized in the hands of a few monopolistic corporations. Ultra monopolies, banking capital, and finance has become dominant over industrial capital. The industrial capitalist makes products. He owns factories and he makes products. He makes money from selling products. But the finance capitalist doesn't make anything. All he does is make money by having money. He creates wealth by having wealth. He engages in what the Christian teaching refers to as usury, or what in Islam they call ribald. He practices and creates money out of nothing. He creates sterile capital. It's fictitious capital, to term it from Karl Marx. The capitalist, the imperialist, the financier that sits at the center of trusts, cartels, and syndicates based in the Western countries, that dominates international trade routes. This system of imperialism, capitalism in its monopoly stage, the highest stage of capitalism, is not defined simply by capitalists who own factories making products, by hiring workers who they exploit to make their profits. No. Capitalism in its monopoly stage is defined by huge monopolistic cartels, syndicates, mega corporations that make super profits by spreading their tentacles all across the planet, by holding back economic development, by dumping their excess commodities on countries, by impoverishing and keeping underdeveloped corners of the world, by driving down living standards and maximizing their profits so that the world gets poorer and poorer and poorer so that they can get rich. And that in this imperialist stage of capitalism, it's not simply a matter of the worker in the factory being subjected to exploitation. It is a matter of entire nations and countries being subjected to super exploitation. Entire countries are kept poor. Entire countries are kept impoverished. The ability of countries to build up their own industries, pave their own roads, teach their own children, build educational systems, build electrification facilities and power plants and water treatment facilities in order to build themselves up. The ability of countries to rise up and industrialize is retarded and held back by the domination of Western foreign corporations. And this is capitalism in its monopoly stage. Imperialism, the rule of the world by financiers and bankers who hold back economic development in order to maintain their monopolistic position. Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. And that at one point, when imperialism was in ascendancy, when it was rising, the imperialists were able to buy class peace in their homeland by picking some sections of the working class and paying them better wages. The so-called aristocracy of labor, of skilled workers in certain industries and certain trades, they got higher wages, and this bought their loyalty to empire, and it stabilized and prevented class struggle in the imperialist homelands. And so, as a result of capitalism moving into its imperialistic stage at the dawn of the 20th century, the revolutionary energy left the Western countries. No more were the Western factory workers in a revolutionary mode. They were increasingly becoming bourgeoisified labor aristocracy, bought off, supporters of empire. The revolutionary energy shifted to the colonized world. It shifted to places like Africa and Asia and South America, where countries had been kept underdeveloped by the domination of the imperialists. They'd been kept poor. And because of that, the whole country was struggling to break itself free so it could raise its people up out of poverty and build itself up. And the first step in that direction was the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. Russia broke itself out of the domination of Western capitalism and Western financiers and began industrializing with 5-year economic plans, raising itself up. It built some of the world's largest power plants. It wiped out illiteracy. It electrified the whole country. It withstood a Nazi invasion. It invented space travel. China then broke free as well. And so did the northern half of the Korean Peninsula. And so did Vietnam. And so did Cuba. And so did Iraq and Syria and many African countries. And all across the world, you saw a wave of national liberation movements where countries that were kept chronically poor by the imperialists broke their chains and raised themselves up. And the world began to shift in the 20th century. And of course, in the 20th century, we didn't have a revolution in the United States. There was a huge amount of unrest during the 1930s, but after the Second World War, U.S. society became very stable. There were rebellions among the black people. against the conditions they had been subjected to. There were sections of the black community, very big sections, that became sympathizers with the global anti-imperialist movement. There was dissent among college students and radicals who didn't want to fight in the wars and were smart enough to read about how all of this developed and became sympathetic to the resistance movement to imperialism around the world. But overall, in the 20th century, we saw the stability of the Western capitalist countries. And the battlefield in the global class war was primarily in the colonized world. It was primarily in the countries that had been under the boot of Western imperialism. And they were fighting for national liberation. The working class took center stage, leading anti-imperialist alliances, united fronts. In China, the Communist Party led the bloc of four great classes against the imperialists. The bloc of four classes. It was the workers, it was the farmers and the peasants, it was the middle class peasants, it was the nationalist capitalists. All of them aligned in a bloc of four great classes led by the Communist Party that drove the British Empire out, drove the colonizers out, and industrialized and led China on the path of independent development it's got today. In Cuba, Fidel Castro came to power saying he was neither a capitalist or a communist. He just wanted what was best for Cuba. But as the Soviet Union was helping Cuba to industrialize, the revolution in Cuba shifted to being a communist revolution. We saw many different places this process play out, where nations that had been kept poor by the imperialists broke the chains of foreign domination and embarked on the road of national liberation and built themselves up. And of course, the United States responded with invasions and coups and military attacks and interventions and all kinds of attacks and subversions. And that was the 20th century. But now speed forward to the 21st century. The 21st century. Thank you, Nicholas. The 21st century is defined by a new economic situation. Because long before capitalism developed into the monopolistic stage of imperialism, long before capitalism, I see Delta V has a question. PragerU for Kids, writing it down. Long before capitalism developed into its monopoly stage, long before we got to the situation that we're in, long before we got there, Marx observed a built-in problem with the capitalist system, which is that the worker cannot buy back what he produces. And the capitalist is constantly trying to produce as many products as he possibly can, but he wants to pay the worker as little as he possibly can to produce them. Capitalist wants to lower his labor costs in order to maximize his profits. He wants to produce as many products as he can in order to maximize his profits, but he wants to pay the worker as little as he can. Well, the worker is also the consumer. And the capitalist system is frequently plagued by a problem called glut, G-L-U-T, glut. And it's the problem of overproduction, is that the economy starts to shut down because there's too much stuff. People become homeless because there are too many houses. People become hungry because there is too much food. And the capitalists are constantly trying to deal with this problem. In Missouri, they have a cave with billions and billions of dollars worth of agricultural products, cheese and pecans and all kinds of things. The government buys and buries it to inflate the prices, to keep the price of dairy from sinking and all the farms from going out of business. They buy all kinds of dairy and farm products and bury them in a cave in Missouri. And that this is a frequent problem. I mean, the housing bubble burst in the United Americans became homeless. I saw it with my own eyes in 2008. not because there wasn't enough housing, but because there was too much housing, because the government was loaning people money and certifying loans from private banks so that people could buy houses, but they couldn't pay back those loans because the living standards of Americans were constantly going down. And because of that, Alan Greenspan legalized all kinds of easy credit to try and keep the American public spending. But the American people, their living standards have just decreased and decreased and decreased, and they couldn't buy the homes. And so finally, all that easy credit, fell apart, and the housing bubble burst, and Bear Stearns, and all of that happened. And people in America were homeless in 2008 and 2009 because there are too many houses. This is the problem of capitalism. That in capitalism, the mode of production, the ability to produce goods, becomes so efficient and productive, it outstrips the means of distribution. It outstrips the narrow confines of the profit system of production oriented for profit. And you'll notice that in the capitalist system, right up to today, great long-term economic crises come after big technological leaps. And the Great Depression was caused by the innovations of Henry Ford and Taylorism and the huge leaps in assembly line production. We got so good at making things in assembly lines, so efficient, so good at producing stuff, that in 1929, the stock market crashed. And the Great Depression was different than other capitalist depressions because it didn't fix itself in a year, didn't fix itself in 2 years or 3 years, and things didn't really start getting better until the Second World War happened, and half the planet was destroyed, and every major city in Europe was destroyed, Asia was destroyed, Japan was destroyed. All kinds of mass destruction and death created enough devastation that once again the capitalist economy could keep going again. The problem of glut, the problem of overproduction was resolved. The great technological leaps make the problem of overproduction far worse than before. And this relates to another concept called the tendency of the falling rate of profits. And this then leads us to an understanding of why we're in the situation that we're in right now. The situation that we are in right now in the United States of America and in the world in 2023, the reason that Joe Biden doesn't give a crap about us and has no comment on Maui as he pours billions of dollars into Ukraine, the reason that Jane Goodall is put up there to suggest offing 95% of the human race, the reason for all of this is that the computer revolution and artificial intelligence has taken these problems that Karl Marx wrote about, the problem of the tendency of the falling rate of profit, the problem of overproduction, and extrapolated them and made them worse, made them bigger and more dramatic than we have ever seen. And we are now living in a prolonged capitalist economic crisis created by the huge technological advances. It is now easier to produce products than ever before. With 3D printers, with book print on demand, you name it. Machines can do anything. They can trade stocks better than people. They can play chess better than people. They don't need workers at the assembly line anymore. And you'd think, well, that's all well and good, except the worker is also the consumer. And when there's people not at the assembly line, people can't buy their products. And furthermore, only human labor creates value. Machines are dead capital. They do not produce. They're fixed capital. They do not produce value. Only human labor can create value, can put value into the product. And it's only from human labor that the capitalist can extract his profits. So because of that, the rate of profit that the capitalist makes on each product that he produces has gone down and down and down because he can only make profit from the human labor. And all of this leads to a prolonged economic crisis, and that is what we are living in. And this is exactly what Marx wrote about. He wrote about it in The Poverty of Philosophy. He wrote about it in The Critique of the Goethe Program. He wrote about it in many different works, and so did Friedrich Engels, and so did Lenin, and so did all of them. This is the built-in Gotterdammerung, the twilight of the gods, the end of capitalism. The machines are getting so much more efficient. And the role of the human being and the machine is less and less and less. And increasingly, more and more people are joining that reserve army of labor, the mass of unemployed, the semi-employed, the precariat, the new class of almost permanently unemployed people who don't have long-term employment, the gig economy, etc. We're increasingly seeing a vast underclass being created. They're throwing us out of the means of production. Karl Marx wrote about workers being reduced to appendages of machines. Now the machines have no appendages. And all of this is leading to a situation where there is no real alternative except for the broad masses of society, the people, to come together and seize control of the machines. The means of production, the centers of economic power, the banks, the factories, the oil wells, etc., need to become the property of the people. And thank you, Jamie Turner. I am writing down Iroquois Confederacy. They need to become the property of the people. We need production to be rationally organized, not organized based on the profits of private owners, but forced to work in the interest of all society. We need to do what China has done with their 5-year economic plans, with their state-run industries. We need to do what so many countries around the world have done. We need to break our country out of this international financial oligarchy. And we need to establish a government of action that would fight for working families. Instead of having a government that rolls over and lets Jeff Bezos enrich himself as all of us get poorer, we need a government that fights for working families, small business owners, unemployed people, students, and fights for working families and kicks the ass of Jeff Bezos, kicks the crap out of the banks, kicks the crap out of the oil monopolists and the Silicon Valley fascists, and fights for the working class and controls the means of production. We need a society where human reason and rational planning in the interest of all dictates production, not the narrow interests of private owners. And this will resolve this built-in problem of overproduction. And thank you, Lionel. I do appreciate that. This is what is needed. And if you want to give me this socialism doesn't work stuff, I don't know what to tell you. Because socialism made Russia into a superpower, defeated the Nazis, invented space travel, invented the AK-47 rifle, built some of the biggest power plants the world has ever seen, wiped out illiteracy, made some of the greatest films that had ever been seen, etc. Socialism is the reason that China is the second largest economy in the world today. It once was the sick man of Asia before the communists came to power. Now China, with its state-run banks and its state-run energy corporations and its 5-year economic plans and its ruling communist party that tells even the private companies what to do, that dictates and plans out the economy, has raised millions of people up. It's because of socialism that Cuba has a healthcare system that is the envy of people all over the planet. Because of socialism that Libya once had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. Under the leadership of Muammar Gaddafi, the Islamic socialist and ally of the Soviet Union, Libya built itself up, built the world's largest irrigation system, the Great Man-Made River, raised millions of people up, and had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. And that's before it was bombed and destroyed by the insidious criminal Barack Obama, who destroyed Libya and turned it into an impoverished country bombed into the free market by NATO. The successes of socialism are everywhere. Compare Nicaragua to Honduras and Guatemala and the free market countries of Central America. It doesn't even compare. The successes of socialism as an economic system. The successes of socialism as an economic system are everywhere to be seen, and they do everything they can to try and conceal them. They don't want you to know about them. They want to show you a slide of a famine that happened in the early 1930s in the Soviet Union or the early 1960s in China and say that that's the whole experience. They never tell you that it was because of socialism that these countries got tractors on their farms for the first time. It's because of socialism these countries first got electrified. It's because of socialism these countries were able to pull themselves out of those bad conditions, and that famines happened all the time before the communists came to power. They don't tell you these things. They try their hardest to conceal the facts, to promote the mythology of the 20th century, and to ignore the blatant reality that socialism has raised millions of people out of poverty. Socialism has industrialized the vast territories of Russia and China and Mongolia and Central Asia. Socialism laid the foundations for the Pakistan-China economic corridor that is prosperous. Socialism is why many African countries are really benefiting by trading with China and their One Belt, One Road initiative. Socialism is why Vietnam has had an economic miracle, raising millions of people up, huge expansion in its economy. Socialism works as an economic system. And they don't want you to understand that. They want you to believe that capitalism is the only system we can ever accept, or they want you to believe that somehow socialism is about degrowth, that somehow socialism means we don't want things to grow. You know, it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. That I was taught my whole life that communism means that everyone's poor, and that you can't have money because having money is capitalism. And now, after years of unlearning that, after reading Anna Louise Strong and her story of how the Soviet people lifted themselves up, after defending the success of China, the success of so many countries that have industrialized and built themselves up and raised their living standards with socialism, I now hear all kinds of Americans claiming to be socialists and repeating the same garbage, that socialism opposes growth, that socialism is about making everyone poor. And in fact, the so-called left is dominated by forces who don't want to do what Stalin did and raise millions of people up and industrialize the Soviet Union, don't want to do what Mao and Deng Xiaoping did and raise millions of people up and turn China into a mighty country, who don't want to do what Fidel did and build a modern country in Cuba, industrialize, build hospitals and schools and send literacy volunteers all over the world. No, socialism in the United States is dominated by people who want degrowth, people who want fascism, people who want to do what Hitler did in Germany and create a slave labor underclass and forcibly depopulate regions and drive down living standards and reduce the number of productive laborers who are involved and reduce technological advancement and save capitalism with degrowth methods. The same thing that Jane Goodall wants. This is called fascism. Fascism. Degrowth, malthusianism, eugenics, and saving capitalism by forcing down living standards, by reducing consumption, by implementing the Green New Deal, which would reduce energy consumption dramatically and vastly impoverish this country, reduce all of us to a much lower living standard. That's called fascism. Fascism It is capitalism in decay. It is the establishment of a degrowth economy. It is the reduction of living standards. It's the creation of slave labor underclasses. It is trying to save capitalism with degrowth, depopulation, eugenics, breeding people like animals, militarization, war, oppression. That's called fascism. AOC is not a communist. AOC is a fascist. And the Green New Deal that she is promoting is fascism. And the degrowthers, the Jacobin crowd, the so-called Marxist left, that would rather talk about transgenderism than anything that Stalin or Mao or William Z. Foster or Gus Hall or the Black Panthers did. Those folks are not communists. They are fascists. And they are trying to carry out the agenda that you just heard from Jane Goodall and the agenda of Joe Biden. In the name of declaring that America is a racist country, which, yes, don't disagree with them. In the name of declaring that this country was founded on slavery and the slaughter of the indigenous people, which it was, I don't disagree with them. In the name of some kind of social justice, woke orientation, look how good we are, look how moral we are. In the name of wokeism, these fascists want to grind the United States into a low-wage police state. They want to impoverish whole swaths of territory. They want to do to the United States of America what's already been done to Africa, what's already been done to Asia and Latin America. They want to bring it home. They want to bring imperialism home to be cannibalistic, to deindustrialize, to try and save their rotten system. That's what they want. That is what they want. And it is our duty not to support them in doing so, but also not to call for deregulation and free markets. It is our duty to bring forward a socialist class struggle message. It is our duty to call for a society where the banks and the factories and the industries work in the interest of the people. It is our duty to call for an alliance with Russia and China and Venezuela and Iran. It is our duty to represent and build a coalition of all the sectors of U.S. society that would benefit from joining in the growth-oriented, socialist-led bloc of countries that is emerging around the world. It is our duty to build up the U.S. wing of the BRICS, the U.S. wing of the Belt and Road, the U.S. wing of the Eurasian Economic Union, the U.S. wing of the Bolivarian Alternative of Latin America, the U.S. wing of the Axis of Resistance in the Middle East. It is our duty to build up a coalition to save this country from the nightmare of capitalism in decay. That is our duty. We must build the anti-monopoly coalition, the united front against fascism, low wages, war, and poverty. That is our duty. Our duty is to build a growth-oriented coalition of builders, an alliance of builders here in America to fight for a new America. And we have a 4-point economic plan that the Center for Political Innovation has put forward that would do just that. We want public control of our natural resources, public control of banking. We want to mobilize the population to build, hire all the young unemployed people at decent wages to rebuild the country. We want an economic Bill of Rights. What we want is the United States to be reborn on new foundations of brotherhood, comradeship, friendship with the people of the world. And we want to defeat the financier oligarchy, the war maker class, the oil banking elite, the Silicon Valley social engineering tech monopolists. We want to defeat the internationalist plutocracy that is trying to destroy our lives, and we want to rebuild this country with central planning, with brotherhood, with community, with people of different races and different nationalities, different religions and different backgrounds, joining arm in arm, standing together as one. Long live the great unity of the people of the world. Long live the great unity of the people of the world. Long live the great unity of the people of the world. We want this country to be completely recreated and reborn so that growth and human innovation and creativity can never again be restrained by the irrationality of the wealthy few and their drive for profits. That is what we advocate. We advocate common sense economics. America's coal, America's timber, America's oil, and America's natural gas should make America wealthier, not international bankers. America's banking system should be organized to serve the American people and to serve the country overall economically, not the wealth of a small group of financier capitalists. We should make sure that we invest in our population. If we want to have a strong economy, we're going to need a group of American workers that are educated. And that means education for all. Giving people an education isn't a handout. It's not a handout. It's not giving them a freebie. No, it's an investment. We need to start churning out engineers and scientists and inventors and creative people, people that can do mathematics very well, people that can solve problems, that can cure cancer, that can do breakthroughs in human energy, that can build and design high-speed railway systems. We need to invest in our population. Educate our young people. Make them smarter. Don't make them dumber. Let's make a new social media app that, unlike Facebook and Twitter, doesn't make them dumber. It makes them smarter. Let's use social media to engineer the lives of Americans to be healthier, smarter, and more educated. Let's take control of the technological innovations and start social engineering people not to be idiots, but to be geniuses and to be strong and to be bold and to be creative. Let's start using all this apparatus that the capitalists have built to milk profits out of us, to imprison us, to break people's spirits, to control people, to manipulate them into buying shit. Let's take all this apparatus of destruction and manipulation that they have created and let us turn it around to be a mechanism for building and constructing. That is what we advocate. We advocate a growth-based economy rather than a rip-off, derivative, financier, profiteering economy. We advocate an economy that's based on steel and iron and new ideas and new schools and new roads and new railroads and new innovations and new creativity, not an economy that's based on marijuana and heroin and pornography and self-hatred and prison labor and hopelessness. That's the kind of economy that we want to build in the United States of America. And that's the kind of economy that most Americans overwhelmingly want. The only reason we don't have it is because we have not yet reached that critical moment. That critical moment when a number of factors will come together and they'll have no choice but to change. I believe that things will get to the point soon when the conditions are so bad that people won't be able to stand it anymore. The storm is coming. But furthermore, I also believe that Russia ain't going nowhere. China ain't going nowhere. Venezuela, Iran, they ain't going nowhere. Cuba ain't going nowhere. Nicaragua ain't going nowhere. Syria certainly isn't going anywhere. And while the Western capitalist liberal societies crash and burn and deteriorate and become more and more unstable and confused and lost, the rising alternative, The global centers of resistance to their system are going to remain strong. And the sections of this society that want growth and want construction and want building and don't want an economy based on tearing things down will be emboldened. And I believe that our organization, the Center for Political Innovation, the CPI, I believe that we will play a pivotal role in making the transition, in breaking America free from imperialism and globalism and capitalism in decay. And I believe that we will play a pivotal role in awakening and forming the anti-monopoly coalition that is to come. I'm pretty sure of this. But these are not easy times. We've faced all kinds of suppression. We've faced all kinds of demonization. But I believe we will prevail. And one of the reasons that I am sure we will prevail is because I have faith in God. It took me years to understand it. It took me years to come to terms with it. But I now know that I would never have become a socialist or a communist if I hadn't become a Christian first, if I hadn't been taught about Jesus the carpenter. Mao Zedong said that to die for the imperialists and the fascists is lighter than a feather, but to die for the people is weightier than Mount Tai. And at a young age, a little church in Ohio, Vacation Bible School, little tiny Lutheran church, you couldn't see another building from it. All completely surrounded by cornfields. In the summertime, as a small child, I gave myself to Jesus Christ. I gave myself to Jesus Christ, Jesus the carpenter, who died for the people, who kicked the money changers out of the temple, who said that someday the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And it is my faith in God and my faith in true revolutionary Christianity, a Christianity that defies and opposes the rich and powerful, a Christianity that hails the downtrodden and the oppressed. It is my faith in that Christianity, the Christianity of the Sandinistas of Nicaragua, the Christianity that you see in the colectivos and communes of central Caracas, the revolutionary faith in God that drove the Palestinians to resist the crimes of Zionist Israel and continues to lead their battle for heroic resistance, the faith in God that leads the Russian communists in Donetsk and Lugansk to establish the Donetsk People's Republic and the Lugansk People's Republic, and have held out after 8 years of resistance and now have Putin on their side. It is my faith in the God that opposes the imperialists, the God who stands with the downtrodden and the oppressed and will someday come back to right all that it is wrong. It is my faith in the God of justice and truth that keeps me going. And that Jesus Christ was one of the greatest, probably the greatest communist in all of history. And Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him for 30 pieces of silver, was a capitalist who sold out his principles, who sold out right and wrong, who abandoned his comrades and his brothers for 30 pieces of silver, just like Wall Street has abandoned America for billions of dollars, just like Joe Biden has abandoned the people of Maui for billions and billions of dollars. Our country is run by Judas Iscariot. Our country is run by cynical, manipulative, evil forces, but they will be defeated and justice will prevail. And the working class, the final class of history, the class that produces the wealth of this world, will triumph, and we will get towards the ultimate stage of communism. A world with so much wealth and so much abundance that inequality no longer exists. A world with so much wealth and so much abundance that no state or no coercion exists, that people can just do what it is they feel like doing, from each according to his own ability, to each according to his needs. We will reach the kingdom of God on earth. We will reach the final stage of human history. We will reach that final victory, that final triumph of humanity over the environment, that final triumph of humans beyond the primitivism and the backwardness that has defined them, the final victory of creativity and our godlike ability to create and transform the world around us and do so more effectively generation after generation. I believe in humanity. I believe in the goodness of all of us, and I believe that we will prevail. And capitalism is just one stage. And just like feudalism, just like slavery, and just like hunter-gatherer civilization, it will have its day and it will depart from us. And we will move toward a higher plane. We will move toward a higher plane of existence. And on that note, folks, before I get to, before we start answering super chat questions, because we got plenty of questions to answer and keep the questions rolling in. Before we do that, I have often felt that the polemic is a great way to communicate ideas. So I, for a long time, have loathed a certain pseudo-socialist, pseudo-anti-imperialist named Ben Norton. And I just found out that Ben Norton has blocked me on Twitter. And because of that, I am now going to unload on Ben Norton. Because a couple years back, Ben Norton made a video, didn't say my name because he doesn't want to advertise for me, God forbid, but he referenced a lot of the things we talk about on this channel and spoke about them idiotically. So this is the short clip of Ben Norton. Ben Norton giving his analysis of what it is we talk about on here.
Trump rotted so many people's brains. Obviously, we saw that with liberals, with Russiagate and the Orange Cheeto Man and being gay with Putin and all this nonsense. But
which, keep in mind, all the people that Ben Norton is aligned with are the kind of people who promote that kind of thing. Ben Norton says that the Stop Trump movement, the effort to drive out Donald Trump, all of that's good. And in fact, Ben Norton aligns himself with the Party of Socialism and Liberation, led by Brian Becker, whose only critique of the Biden administration was they didn't go far enough in prosecuting and outlawing protests and suppressing dissent after January 6th. So, yeah, you also broke your brain after Donald Trump was elected. But continue.
It also rotted the brains of some people who were on the left or claimed fidelity to the left, or at least used to. So, I mean, there are people who openly argue at this point, especially the so-called patriotic socialists, which is a whole other dumb can.
Yeah, you can't love your country and be a socialist. That's just idiotic. I mean, who ever heard of such a thing, right? I mean, you become a socialist because you want the country to burst into flames and everyone to die, right? I mean, it's just oh, yeah, why would anyone be patriotic, right? The right wing says that we're all a bunch of hippies who spit on soldiers and burn flags. Everybody knows that, right? Yeah. Why wouldn't we want average Americans to think we're their enemies? I mean, look at the gestures there. Just look at this. This is unbelievable.
Of worms. But they openly argue. They say communism is conservative.
Ben, do you think the Soviet Union was into the transgender thing? Was that what they were focusing on? You think in China they're huge fans of the woke thing? And you know, Ben, you live in Nicaragua. Ben, you live in Nicaragua. You do realize that Nicaragua has some of the strictest anti-abortion laws of any country in the world. Oh yeah, I don't think you realize that, because even while you're living in Nicaragua, you're tweeting out idiotic things, claiming that anyone who's against abortion is a fascist and a theocrat and stuff. Ben, if you've ever been to any communist country in the world, Vietnam, Cuba, North Korea, China, Laos, Venezuela, you would know that according to the woke idiots you hang around with, if anyone says anything remotely close to what those people think, they would be labeled a conservative. So please do not try to convince me that the Chinese Communist Party is woke, that the Vietnamese Communist Party is woke, that Nicaragua is woke. They're socialists. They're anti-imperialists. They're not woke, and they certainly aren't practicing degrowth, you dumb fuck.
And that we are more likely to win over conservatives than liberals.
Actually, yes. Have you tried to talk with anybody in the United States lately? I mean, this is just great, right? What country does Ben Norton live in? He lives in Nicaragua. So he lives in Central America. He ran away to Central America, but he thinks he knows how to better recruit and build a socialist movement in the United States, right? I mean, this is outrageous. We can better recruit conservatives than liberals. Yeah, well, why don't you do it, Ben? Why don't you get your ass back here to the United States and go try to convince crowds of people who think that Trump needs to be removed from office because he's an agent of Putin, and you try to convince them to stand in solidarity with the people of Donetsk and Lugansk. You fucking idiot. Seriously. I mean, you run to Nicaragua, and now you're sitting there going, oh, we can recruit conservatives. Actually, you can. When I talk to conservatives, they hate Jeff Bezos too. When I talk to conservatives, they're suspicious of Biden sending weapons to Ukraine while America's falling apart too. And if you say that to liberals, you know what they say to you? That's a conspiracy theory. You must be right wing. Yes, it is easier to talk to conservatives than liberals. And you would know that if you were in the United States trying to do what is your job as an anti-imperialist and build an anti-imperialist movement, not just grift money ripping on your homeland. And that's all you're doing. You're a cynical grifter, and you're hustling the anti-imperialist states. You're hustling Russia. You're hustling China. You're hustling Venezuela to get money by doing a cynical performance art. I don't think you even really support these countries. I think that you're just a fucking grifter. And I'm here in the United States because I actually want to build a real movement, because I actually love my country. I love the working people. I care about the people in Ohio who are losing their jobs and seeing their kids go to prison for opioids. I care about the hungry children in the Bronx. I care about the people losing their schools and their jobs and their homes so that Joe Biden can send money and weapons to Ukraine or send money to Israel to murder Palestinians. I actually care about them. I'm not just putting on some woke autistic grift like you. I love my country, and that's why I'm a socialist. I want to see an America where everyone has jobs and healthcare and education. I want to see an America where the bankers are defeated, and you want to hustle money and grift and rip off the anti-imperialist countries so that you can live a luxurious, decadent lifestyle as an expat. I actually believe in this. I actually love my country, and you're a fraud, and you know it.
Over conservatives than liberals, and they openly say that. And
yeah, we do. Because if you lived in America and actually talked to anybody, you would know that. You would know that liberals want to murder Russians and conservatives want peace with Russia. You would know that liberals believe everything they see on CNN and conservatives question it. You would know that Tucker Carlson supports the Uhuru movement, while Joe Biden is trying to throw them in jail for being against the war in Ukraine. You might know this, Ben, if you were here doing the work, if you weren't a grifting expat.
They say that Trump, even though we disagree with him, even though we disagree with him on all these things, he represents this kind of like radical wing of the bourgeoisie that is going against big capital. And it's
actually, yeah, Why do you think they're trying to throw Donald Trump in jail? I mean, if he's on the same team as Joe Biden, why do you think they're trying to throw Donald Trump in jail? Why do you think they kicked Tucker Carlson off Fox News? Oh, but they're all good buddies. There's no disagreements. That's crazy. Oh, the idea that there might be a fight in the ruling class. I mean, there was no coup attempt against Roosevelt. The business plot never happened. JFK never got assassinated. No, RFK never got assassinated. Oh no, Nixon didn't get driven out of office with the Watergate scandal. No, all the capitalists are on the same team. Karl Marx said so. There's no division in the ruling class. I know what I'm talking about. What a fucking idiot. I mean, and he sits there and he wants to tell us that, oh no, we shouldn't be trying to recruit Americans that are conservative and are questioning mainstream media. Instead, we should be trying to recruit teenagers with pink hair who think all Republicans are Nazis, and that anyone who is at all critical of the trans question, which the Russians and the Cubans and the Iranians and the Venezuelans are, should be murdered. You have no idea what you're talking about, Ben. Tucker Carlson supports Uhuru, and Biden is imprisoning them, and all the fake leftist groups, for the most part, have abandoned them, right? You want us to align with the people who are throwing black revolutionaries in jail, but you don't want us to align with the people speaking up in support of them on national television. That's your position. It's more important to be woke than it is to support black revolutionaries who are facing imprisonment. You want us to align with the people who are censoring the internet, who are teaming up with Twitter to silence us. You want us to align with them because Trump is a racist. Trump is a big racist. I don't like Donald Trump. There's a lot of things that Donald Trump said and did as president, murdering Qasem Soleimani, anti-immigrant policies I don't agree with. But the Trump wing does represent a section of the ruling class that is at odds with the prevailing trend of imperialism. And if you are so idiotically dogmatic, you cannot realize that. How dare you call yourself a Marxist?
It's like small capital against big capital, which is...
Yes, small capital against big capital. The business plot. The Yankee and Cowboy War. Carl Oglesby. The Anglo-American establishment by, wow. I mean, it's just like there's all this research into who the ruling class are and the different factions among them. But no, they're all the same. We're all idiots for thinking there could ever be any division in the ruling class.
Going against big capital. And it's like small capital against big capital, which is ridiculous. I mean,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? I mean, Trump's administration wasn't full of lower level capitalists, and Biden wasn't supported by all the big corporations in removing Donald Trump. I mean, this guy's really a piece of work, right? I mean, it reminds you of Noam Chomsky, doesn't it? Noam Chomsky is like this. When the movie JFK by Oliver Stone came out, Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn gave a press conference and said, oh, no, this movie's awful. No, it can't be because Kennedy did the Bay of Pigs invasion. Kennedy oversaw some coups, so therefore Kennedy wasn't assassinated. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Right? Well, Kennedy wasn't a communist. Kennedy wasn't perfect. So therefore, we can't talk about the Kennedy assassination. As if there could never be any divisions in the ruling class, as if there could never be other factions. And after 9/11, 9/11 truth, the same situation, right? Noam Chomsky came out and said, oh, no, we can't look into any questions about 9/11. I mean, at this point, it's been revealed stuff about the hijackers, the 28 pages, but Noam Chomsky came out. No. America just goes around the world doing bad things. Somebody did it back to us. No. These people are gatekeepers. They're here to make sure that the left just remains a piece of window dressing for the U.S. political establishment, that the U.S. political establishment does whatever it's going to do. And the communists and the leftists, we remain this Noam Chomsky fan club, this irrelevant group of intellectuals and people, running up our nose. Oh, yes, I'm better than the idiot Americans. They're a bunch of cowboys and racists. You want to make sure we never have a real revolutionary movement in the United States, right? I mean, that's basically what you're doing, Ben, right? And we all can see it, right? And I mean, at this point, you align yourself with the PSL, the Party of Socialism and Liberation, Ben. I got to tell you, Ben, the PSL, the Party of Socialism and Liberation, right? Do you know what issues they've organized on over the past few years? They've organized Black Lives Matter rallies. and they've organized against abortion. Do you think that that is where the revolutionary movement is going to come from? It's going to come from people marching around and supporting abortion and people marching around and echoing CNN about Black Lives Matter. Is that where you think the revolution is going to come from? You know, I am so tired of the PSL grift, because Rage Against the War Machine was a historic moment, libertarians and leftists marching together. And you all not just boycotted it, but you smeared it. You endlessly on the internet were equating it with Nazis. You were basically calling for Antifa to show up and murder everyone there, is what you were doing. It's an honor to be blocked by you, Ben Norton, because you're a piece of shit. You really are. You're a piece of shit. You're a grifter. And I am doing what any genuine anti-imperialist would do. So take that for what it's worth, Ben. I am not your friend. Good night. So on that note, names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who's with us tonight? Who is with us? All right. I'm looking in the chats, right? I'm looking in the Rockfin. Excellent talk today. Thank you. Are you a troll? There you go. I'm looking in the chat. Scroll to the bottom. All right. I'm looking there. I'm looking. Sydney. Ivan Chow is in Sydney. Very good. Very good. Bendigo, Australia, David Fox. Joseph from Georgia. Heidi in Edinburgh, Scotland. John McCarthy in Chicago. CP in Chicago. Dustin Schlesinger in Cleveland, Ohio. John Vance in Canada. Benny in Managua. Gabby Hernandez in Chicago. Nicholas Lynch in Daphne, Alabama. Bruce in the Philippines. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Anthony in Detroit. Very, very good. Very, very good. We got Baltimore, NRJ. Rice in Adelaide, Australia. Randall Wilson in Kentucky. We got Tyler in Missouri. We got Sydney, Australia. George Muniz. We got Average American in Florida. IA. We got Panos in Greece. Mima Flowers in California. Los Angeles, Ishmael. Patrick in Maine. Neil Fraser in Hong Kong. Interesting. Has the Rockfin been shut down? That's interesting. Right? Interesting. We're having some Rockfin problems. That's interesting. Interesting. We're having trouble streaming to your destination. Ended or deleted on your destination. That could occur. That's very odd. Okay. Rockfin, folks, can you still see me? Can you still see me on Rockfin? This is very interesting. Very interesting. It says streaming problems on Rockfin. Your stream doesn't appear here. That's very odd. Formerly Glendale, California, Fresno, California. Oh, no, I'm still on Rockfin. I'm good. Problem resolved. All right. Molly McGuire in Orange County. All right. Rockfin is made of sticks and tar. Rumble froze too. Tuning in from Houston tonight. Jacob Maxey. It's been a while. Jacob, how you been? Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Dave from Planet Earth, locked in Jenny Lynn's basement. Rumble is cool now. I just got here, Mohican. There we go. Bob Troy in New York. Welcome. There we go. All right. Names and locations. Right. Oh boy. Adam from Las Vegas. Mariah in North Carolina. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and the rulers of darkness. Mark Jones in Utica, New York. Neil Fraser in Hong Kong. Enoch Chauffet in Australia. right? Kendall in San Diego, Klaus Kinski from Germany, Guy Frog. Welcome, Guy Frog in Quebec. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Always good to engage with all of you. Kendall in San Diego is with us. So, folks on YouTube, here's an idea. I want to see what this does. I'm just curious, right? I want you all to, right now, real quick, unsubscribe and then resubscribe and then hit the notifications bell. Do that fast and see what happens. I want to see what this does to the algorithm because the algorithm's messing with me right now. So I'll unsubscribe and then immediately resubscribe and then hit the notifications bell. Let's see what that does, right? Let's see what that does. All right. That is my guess. Let's see what that does. Gandalf in Middle Earth. There you go. Balthazar in Oakland. Yeah, but do that. Unsubscribe and then resubscribe and then hit the notifications bell. See if that wakes it up, if that jerks it awake. I mean, they're doing something with the subscriptions. They're being very, very weird. So do that on YouTube. Don't do it on Rockfin. Rockfin's fine. I think Rumble's fine. But yeah, let's see what that does because they're really messing with us. They're really messing with our social media. Really, really messing with our social media. So a couple announcements real quick. Every morning, every single morning, it was a little late this morning, but that's okay. Every single morning we have a morning message on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. Start your day with revolutionary hope and optimism. So, you know, it's really great. Great messages that happen. Noah had a great message today. There's going to be a message tomorrow. We're trying to do 100 days at least where every single day starts with a great morning message. So my hope is that you will subscribe and get the morning message, you know, every morning. And if you're a big fan of this community and you like what we do, by all means, I would encourage you to subscribe and make a morning message. Actually, that's what I would encourage you to do. If you're a big fan of this community, you like what we do, record one of your own. Record your own morning message. That would be really, really great. That would be really, really great. Be really, really awesome if you did a morning message. Yeah, it'd be really, really great if you did a morning message. So yeah, that would be great. That would be great. We need more morning messages. Start your day with revolutionary hope and enthusiasm. So I think next, you know, I've been doing this. I like to play communist music on these streams. I like to do that. And this is a communist song. I played it on here a while ago, but you may have missed it. And if not, I listen to this song all the time. This is one I recently discovered this song, like within the last year. And I just really, really love it. And it's from a band that was aligned with the Revolutionary Communist Party in the late 70s. It's called New China. It kind of narrates the story of a group of American communists visiting China, you know, during the Mao years. And I'm going to put it on because I really, really like this song. And, you know, I listen to it a lot and I would like people to listen to it because this is the way, you know, this is the way that communists used to talk when they talked about class struggle, when they used to talk about socialism. And not everything in this song I necessarily agree with it. Some of it's a little bit naive, you know, about the Mao years in China, but the overall thrust of the song I like. So I'm going to put it on. This is called New China by Prairie Fire. Here we go.
Got to the border, we began to walk under two flags flying over the bridge we were to cross. One was the bloody British rag of imperialism, casting its shadow over poverty, starvation, vicious exploitation in Hong Kong. The other was the flaming red flag of revolution and socialism, telling us all, the people of the world, the time has come to come along. This ain't just any old border that we are standing on. It stands between two systems, one dying, one young and strong. And then we crossed that bridge into China, saw a great banner up ahead. Its meaning set my heart a pounding, and this is what that banner is. Long live the great unity of the peoples of the world. Long live the great unity of the peoples of the world. Went to a steel mill, saw people working hard, but there were no bosses. The workers ran the job. They worked 10 hours, 6 days a week, on great machines built by their own hand. They labor not for some rich man's profits, but to meet the needs of people of the land. And they are building with such a spirit of revolution and socialism, for they are masters of their own future. The working class is in command. Talked with an older worker. He said many worries are gone. If one is sick or injured, they are provided for. We have no fear of rising prices, no unemployment will you find. There's always more to be done to build China, not just for us but to free mankind. Long live the People's Republic, long live working class rule. Long live the People's Republic, long live working class rule. We arrived in Shanghai, where before it was free, dope and prostitution and starving people filled the streets. And now these people stand up united, providing for the needs of all. Decent housing, health care, education, they decide now they are the law. And man, I felt so damn proud of China, of revolution and socialism. Just look at what our class has accomplished. Just look at what the struggle has won. We talked with men and women, now working side by side, about our many struggles for freedom so long denied. They said, comrades, China is with you. This is your country as well as ours. The struggles of the people united will be triumphant. We have the power. Long live the great unity, yeah, of the peoples of the world. Long live the great unity of the peoples of the world. You know, I miss my family, wish they were there with me. I knew they're back home struggling to change society. And I admit I hated to leave China. You know that freedom kinda grows on you. But now I feel such deep determination to do the job we all have to do. Remember, people, our day is coming. Make revolution, build socialism, to do away with class exploitation, to end oppression once and for all. And I have learned a lesson that I will always heed. The fight to end oppression, the working class must lead. But we will build us up a great movement to sweep away the system we're in. And nothing gonna stop us from doing it. We will fight and we will win. Long live the People's Republic. Long live working class rule. Long live the People's Republic. Long live working class rule.
Yes, that just doesn't get old. I am glad I found that song. I'm surprised I didn't find it earlier, but I just found it within the last year, and I really like it, and I listen to it a lot. So I felt like playing it on this stream. We got Chris in Salt Lake City. Shout out to you. So the way this works is I answer your super chat questions. So that's the rest of our show, basically. Well, I've got 3 Rumble Rant questions first. Nothing has come in on the Rockfin yet. And then I will answer the super chat question. So if you got something you want me to talk about, right? The night is young, as they say. It's just about 12:33 here. So if you got any questions, anything you want me to answer, by all means, shoot me a super chat. I will answer your questions. That's what I'm here for. That's what the second half of our show is all about. It's me answering questions. So on that note, I guess I'll do the Rumble Rant questions first. Why is American sunscreen inferior to Korean sunscreen? And what would sunscreen for all mean for you and your family? Right? I guess that's a meme right now, right? That's the video that AOC made. I didn't watch it, but like people are making fun of AOC. That AOC is she's let us all down. I met AOC before she got elected. I was friendly with her. I was really hoping that she would be something good, but she has turned into not being that. And the squad, so to speak, has basically turned into they're the foot soldiers of woke fascism at this point. They want censorship. They want to silence people. And, but yeah, she made a video about sunscreen or something. And I mean, Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. And by the way, I looked up, I knew that chorus, right? Right. That's an old song, right? Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. I just knew it from like folk songs, right? I knew it was a folk song, right? It was just, I listened to folk music when I was a kid. Jimmy crack corn. I looked up the lyrics. Holy crap, that song is racist. I don't know if you know this, but that song, the chorus is Jimmy crack corn and I don't care, is a really racist song, actually. I never knew that. I just knew the chorus. But what it's actually about, it's a minstrel show song. What the minstrel shows were. It was these shows that were quite popular during the time of slavery, where white people would put on blackface and pretend they were slaves. And the song is a minstrel show song. And it's about a slave who kills his master by slapping his horse and making the guy fall off the horse and die. And then he blames it on a fly. It's a very, very dark, racist song. It's called The Blue Tail Fly. I believe is the name of the actual song, but I just knew the chorus because it was an American folk song. So it makes me wonder if I should make that joke anymore. But there you go. Right. But there you go. Yeah. You learn something new every day. But I remember, I think I made that joke in response to Jackson Hinkle or something. And then I wanted to look up. I didn't really know what that song was. I just knew the chorus. Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. I just knew that part. I didn't know the rest of it. Then I looked it up and I was just like, oh shit. Oh boy. Yeah. So there you go. And I mean, that just shows you, like the first full-length movie Hollywood ever made, The Birth of a Nation, racist, right? The first talkie movie, the first movie that was, had sound in it, The Jazz Singer, racist, right? The first cartoon movie, Steamboat Willie, racist. Racism is just a really big part of this country. I mean, that's bad. The woke people aren't wrong when they say that. They're absolutely right. I mean, it's like you go through film history, right? First full-length movie in color, Gone with the Wind, racist. I mean, it's like racism is just it's everywhere in American history. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that, trying to do something about it. I'm all in favor of that. But does that then give the USA the right to invade countries around the world? Does that mean that class struggle and working class solidarity is not the answer and that we should just focus on oppression theory? No. So, but there you go. There you go, folks. So that was about the sunscreen. Thoughts on the Florida Department of Education approving PragerU for Kids videos. I have never watched PragerU for Kids. I have watched regular PragerU, and I debunked their video on who was Karl Marx. I did a very good debunking of that video. And I haven't paid attention to PragerU in some time, but it might be worth debunking some of their content. It is idiotic neoconservative crap. And look, Florida, here's the thing, right? The DeSantis Florida stuff, it's bad. Anti-China, anti-communist, government repression, it's bad. Trump hates DeSantis, right? And that, the Republicans are trying their best to create an anti-wokeism that will serve imperialism, right? And so, yeah, I mean, look, I mean, all the DeSantis stuff, it's stupid conservative grandstanding against China, against communism, but it's anti-wokeism, but it's not anti-imperialist. It's not pro-growth. It's not even populist. It's just, neoconservatism, neocon stuff. And yeah, there you go. There you go. I mean, yeah, I'm not a big fan of DeSantis, and there you go. Was the Iroquois Confederacy socialist in any sense? Well, the indigenous tribes that existed, they practiced some variation of what you might call primitive communism. Now, we know that, as the USA started to become a capitalist country and the indigenous tribes still existed, that they did own slaves. And, there was all kinds of, they as U.S. society emerged, they emerged with it. And, a lot of Native Americans own casinos now and stuff. So it's not that simple, right? But the Iroquois Confederacy, was there something socialistic about it? Probably, right? They probably did not recognize private property. They probably felt people had an obligation to each other. Indigenous Native American people didn't believe in land ownership, right? They didn't understand buying land, right? And that's how some of these awful treaties were made, so there you go. There you go. I mean, was there anything socialist about it? I mean, probably in that sense, there was, but it wasn't socialism as a sequel to capitalism. It was remnants of primitive communism, of hunter-gatherer tribal civilization. That's what I would argue. So there you go. All righty. So now I'm going to start answering super chat questions. We got 4 of them. We don't have any questions yet on the rock fin. But yeah, so yeah. Rich men north of Richmond, what's your take on this? Well, I've spoken about this before, but I think it's great song. And that what I think is behind it is that the Trump wing is under so much attack, and that they're going to have to start playing the class struggle card, because they know that's a card the mainstream conservatives will not play. And that, that video, that viral video of the mom in Georgia talking about how hard it is to live, how hard it is to afford an apartment, almost $2,000 a month for a studio apartment, how ridiculous that is. And, now Richmond, north of Richmond, I think it's all a great development, and I think we should embrace it. And I think we should find a way to relate to these folks, win them over. I think it's a tremendous song. People want to make a big deal out of one line about welfare. I mean, come on. Okay. I think overall it's a great song. And that, again, the left has abandoned populism. The right is going to do it. At the end of the day, we need to find a way to engage with Trump supporters, and, Trump supporters, they're against the mainstream media. Trump supporters question the wars, and Trump supporters are questioning the U.S. economy and how it's set up. And, does that mean they're all going to become communists? No, it means that, right now they're moving, in different directions, but we got to find a way to relate to these people. And, yeah, I think it's a good development, Nicholas. I really do. I think it's a great development in the Trump camp. I'm really glad. Shout out to the friend who sent it to me. Much appreciated. All right. Hey, Caleb, I was discussing politics with a libertarian. He brought up someone called Murray Rothbard. I have not heard of him. Would you mind providing some background on him and his politics? Excuse me there. I know about Murray Rothbard. He's a conservative libertarian who was known, if I'm not mistaken, he promoted like kind of an understanding of the United States that was more conspiracy oriented. He endorsed that book I always quote, The Yankee and Cowboy War, and he was willing to work with leftists on anti-war issues. He was friendly to the California Peace and Freedom Party and other groups, and he was just a libertarian right-wing intellectual who was critical of the U.S. establishment in the war. And he wrote for different magazines and stuff like that. I don't know too much about him, honestly. I don't think he's in the same category as Ludwig von Mises in the Austrian school, but maybe he is. I just don't know. I don't know my libertarians like I should, right? And I should know them more than I do right now. Right now that CPI, it looks like we're drifting in an oddly libertarian adjacent circle. So there we go. I should know more about Murray Rothbard, but there you go. Maybe I should go do my research. The Guidestones that someone blew up the Georgia Guidestones. I didn't know that. Had the goal of getting down the population to 500 million. Yeah, well, the Georgia Guidestones, apparently they were paid for by somebody who was a donor to David Duke, and they're just like this monument that has like these messages on it that includes eugenics and depopulation and regulating birth. And they're a big part of the QAnon people really hate it, and I don't blame them for hating it. And it's a monument built by someone who was a David Duke supporter, some wealthy person who was a David Duke supporter. So yeah, look, a lot, this overpopulation, Malthusian stuff is being pushed by a lot of the ultra rich. They really believe this, right? It's the only way they can save their system is to degrow. And socialism means historical progress, and it means growth. That's what socialism means. So there you go. If you got more questions, shoot them my way. I got one more super chat question here. Where should people send their morning messages? Well, send them to me. Send it to my email, calebmoppin@gmail.com. If you recorded a morning message, you want to upload it and send me the link, that would be great. calebmoppin@gmail.com, all one word. We've already had multiple fans and friends record messages, and I've been reaching out to different people from our community to ask them to record messages. We got some neat guest messages coming up from non-members. We got some great messages from members coming up. And start your day with revolutionary hope and optimism. And if you want to contribute, this is a way that you can contribute. You can make a morning message. You can make one if you want, right? So make a morning message, right? That can be your contribution. We are always looking for contributions. We have messages every morning. So folks, come couple announcements, I guess, before I go. And if anyone else has any further super chat questions or Rumble rants or whatever, I'm all ears. You know, more questions is better. More questions is better. Plenty to talk about. You know, plenty to talk about. But couple announcements. Thursday night, we will have the communist internet legend. We will have none other than Rainer Shea on this channel. Thursday night, Rainer Shea and myself are going to be having a joint stream. So that's going to be historic. We have not always been in agreement with each other, but right now we're working in the same coalition, the Rage Against the War Machine coalition. We're on the same team. So it's going to be interesting to have Rainer Shea on here. We're going to have an hour-long conversation Thursday night. Believe it or not, you and me and Rainer Shea, we are going to be on this channel discussing things. That's going to be wild. So that'll be great. Towards the end of the month, we're going to be engaging. It looks like it's confirmed with Angela McArdle of the Libertarian Party. So that's going to be exciting. Also, thank you, David Fox. If you want to support my work and support this channel on the Patreon, that would be appreciated. We could always use more support on the Patreon. We got a patrons only stream coming up pretty soon. I got to set the date for that, but we had a great one last time. A lot of people on there asking really good questions. So if you'd like to support our work, Patreon would be a great way to do it. Sign up today, and you'll get any of my books that come out. You can get one sent to you. And on top of that, you know, you get to access to private patrons only streams with me. So that's pretty cool. So that's one way to do things. So yeah, Patreon, sign up on the Patreon. Much appreciated. And I guess if nobody has any more questions, I guess we will wrap it up for tonight. Hopefully I'll be back tomorrow night. Looks like I will. But we shall see. So talk to everyone soon. Yeah, I guess I'll put on the closing music and we'll be out of here. All righty. Upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.